you talked about how Mike Waltz was courting as many members of the traditional press corps as he could in order to make sure his name was out there, because we all know, how does Donald Trump decide you're somebody worth hiring? If you do well in press interviews. And
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of called him out, this pretending he didn't know how Jeffrey Goldberg's number could have possibly gotten in there. And you're like, hey, this guy's been courting the press for a year and a half, the mainstream press for a year and a half. Um,
Yeah.
so I think I know how this happened.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I didn't think of it as a source burn because I was like, it's a booking that didn't happen. I still am happy to talk to sources. But I just felt like if he appeared on my show, then I could have just pointed to it. But there was like a 20-minute window that I couldn't make work. And I didn't actually
Hmm.
really follow up on it because at the time I was like, he's a two-term congressman from Florida who voted to certify the election for Joe Biden. Trump's going to pick him out of everybody to be the national security advisor or some big role in the
You,
administration. I don't know what you were thinking at the time during the RNC convention, but that's what I was thinking. And maybe I was wrong, but I felt like he was really trying to build his profile. But he wasn't the only
hmm.
one. Like everyone from like the VP down was
Oh,
trying to talk to
yes.
journalists. So this whole idea that like the cardinal sin was talking to reporters, it's like that's what you do to survive in Trump world and to make it really. And that's what Trump does himself. So yeah, I hope that people didn't see it that way. I just wanted to clear the air because truly this is a person who was trying to build his profile and it worked.
I just thought it was notable because no other journalist did it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When
I
you're on
mean,
the
I'm just saying,
outside,
and
you can do
I'm
you
good
when
on
you're on the
you.
outside, you can do some interesting things. You could be a little bit more real and honest. There's no one there. There was no editor there being like, Tara, I don't think that's like, you're not allowed to do that. And I'm like, I'm writing now a
Yeah.
letter. I write in the first person. I speak from
Mm,
my point of view, my perspective. I try to offer what is part of my mission is to peel back the onion a little bit and to show people
mhm,
how the journalism is done, how the sausage is made, because I think there's a lot of suspicion about us because they don't know exactly how we do our job. So whatever
mhm,
I can show without while protecting my sources and my
mhm,
relationships, I want to do because I think that will build trust, not just in my community, but in the
mhm,
broader journalistic community, because there are still a lot of really great reporters out there working at mainstream outlets because they have to, because they have kids and they didn't make a lot of money, XYZ. I'm just so happen to be single and have like be able to do something like this. But
mhm.
there are various reasons why other people can't leave mainstream media.
Right.
But I think it's worth it to explain, like, hey, this is the transactional, like not transactional, but this is how it's done.
Well, I always said it's like what makes, what makes a good journalist? Are you
Yeah,
constantly curious,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And you strike me
Yes.
as somebody who's constantly curious, and you assume you don't have, no matter what the story is, nah, there's something more. There's got to be
Yeah.
something more. There's got
I
to be
think there's
something
still
more.
more to SignalGate. What do you think? Do you think there's more, Chuck?
I do. I think there's so many Occam's razors to this. You know, if you told me that Jake Sullivan's contact list ended up in Mike Waltz's phones, it wouldn't shock me. Like, if you do you see where I'm going here? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
accidental, the transfer over. Like, to me, that there's all sorts of scenarios that might be a lot more embarrassing, that in some ways are worse because it's
Yeah.
sort of an embarrassment. The fact is, and what has not gotten a lot of attention is they never went through the first round of transition sort of security briefings, right? There really
Hmm.
is, was an entire sort of congressionally mandated financial, with that is funded to a presidential transition in order to make sure people are using secure communications, to
Hmm.
understand which apps are hackable and which aren't, and why, even though Signal is pretty good at protecting, if you're on a phone that isn't protected, then it doesn't matter how good
Hmm.
Signal is as encrypting things. So I do think this is a story of of the transition arrogance that they
Yeah.
all had, in that they didn't, for, obviously Trump's absolutely, he it's clear to me that he thinks his entire first term was undermined by this cabal of people all over the place. Maybe it was inside his own cabinet at times. Maybe it was inside his own West Wing at times, inside his own Justice Department, right? So he was so determined to prevent that they sort of went the other way, right? And didn't
Yeah.
get any sort of security briefings, didn't get any of these things that they should have had. So, I think that's something I'd be pursuing a lot more of as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego, a lot of testosterone, like Hegseth kind of like flexing his powers from infantry
Hmm.
guy to now being able to like target countries like this World of Warcraft stuff. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
like there's just so much so many personality issues that I see in the organization as well. And just the fact that like Trump is not willing to fire anyone. I mean,
But
my
he
boss
never
has already
has.
outlived
I mean, the
Flynn.
greatest myth of all was the idea that the guy in The Apprentice is
Yeah,
was really Donald Trump. He's afraid, one of the interesting things is how he actually would rather have two sets of White House staff than to have to fire anybody. My favorite anecdote on this goes back to 2011 when there were two, when literally Donald Trump had Roger Stone doing preliminary work for running for president, and then
mm,
he also had Michael Cohen doing preliminary work for running for
right.
president. Michael Cohen didn't know what Roger Stone was doing. Roger Stone didn't know what Michael Cohen was doing. I think it was Sam Nunberg, who was working with Michael Cohen at the time, who I think ended up stumbling upon, and then and literally Trump was going in one direction with one of his team, you know, and this is the Trump way, right? He likes to pit people
Team of
against each
rivals,
other.
yeah.
He likes to have all sorts of, he never wants to be boxed in. He always wants an exit strategy, whatever it is. And so he's, so in that sense, personality is personnel,
Right.
and is sort of covering this White House these days.
Right. Okay, can I ask you a question, Chuck? Can't help
Yes.
myself. How are you feeling about being independent right now?
So, I would say about 3 weeks ago, it started to feel good. I was very nervous. I didn't know how much
Okay.
of my identity was wrapped up in NBC
You should
versus
do a
my,
mushroom trip.
I used
LOL.
to say my first name was Meat, right? And I did
Yeah.
feel as if I had to speak for that institution first, and then I was
Yeah.
representative of that institution, and I would be
Mm,
careful in what I say and careful in how I worded things. Um, so you just don't know. This was the interest level in what I'm doing was really high, and it sort of was reassuring. And then you sort of see the abdication of
yeah.
what our colleagues are doing, and it's like, look, if I'm going to be the middle-aged man, yet another middle-aged man screaming into the void, fine, I will be. I at least think I have the credentials to scream accurate things into the void,
Yeah.
and hopefully contribute something. I mean, I've always enjoyed politics because
Mm,
ultimately I'm sort of old-fashioned, right? We created politics to settle disputes without violence. Politics is not meant to be satisfactory to every side. Politics is meant to be a compromise. The whole point of it is
mm,
compromise. And so I love the that aspect of it, and I hate when we're sort of starting to erode it, right? We're not
yeah.
even engaging in the idea of, all right, well, let's sit down and see if we can negotiate a midpoint here, because ultimately it's the only way anything succeeds, right? You try to
Right.
do anything rash, and there's going to be a huge backlash, and it could very well be that that's what the Trump administration is going to be experiencing. I mean, I think we're in a period of backlash.